This is the Business Breakfast on Dubai Eye on One, on the UAE's #1 talk radio station. Oh, we have got a bit of a property theme going this morning and two new reports for you. One of them from the guys at Property Monitor, who have found that for the third month in a row, Dubai property prices recorded less than 1% growth month on month. We are joined now by the COO, Zhann Jochinke. Zhann, it's lovely to speak to you. Good morning.
Morning, Brandy.
Are we seeing, whisper it, a bit of stability in the market?
I think we are, and very happy to see it. This is one of the wishes we had coming into this last year, as we saw sort of month-on-month increases that were a little more aggressive, 2%, 2.5%, and a market that really started to rapidly appreciate. We were calling and hoping that those would start to moderate and we'd see more sustainable growth. So sub 1% numbers. For the last 3 months, we've seen exactly that. So we have seen a trend starting to occur, and hopefully that's a little bit of cooling off that's coming into the market. Something on the price appreciation that will continue in the months going forward.
What's causing that?
So I think a lot of those properties that rapidly appreciated in price, there's just been the bid-ask sort of delta that's there, that gap where buyer and seller expectations can't be met. Those properties that were value sold, and now you've got some that are lingering on the market. So you're not seeing buyers chase those prices. Mortgages are also coming into it in a big way. A lot of the purchases that happened last year were for end use, and buyers getting into the market by using a mortgage. Mortgage rates obviously changing, so the dynamics there are changing as well. And you're not seeing sort of on those larger, those prices that are rapidly appreciating, investors jump on board. Investors are jumping on to the more moderately priced apartments or the properties that are off plan.
OK, let's dig into that in a little bit more detail, because I have to admit, this report, I was far more interested in what you had to say about mortgages than the price, which I don't think has happened before. Mortgage volumes are declining, and you've been watching them and say they've been tapering down since the first rate hike in March. How reactive are we to what the Fed is doing?
Very. I mean, look, we're pegged to the dollar, so there's a correlation that's there. In the US, mortgage rates aren't directly affected by federal rate increases. They're more tied to 10-year treasuries, and that's because more of them are 30-year fixed products. Here in the UAE, we don't have a 30-year fixed product, so there's more directly tied to those rate increases like credit cards and other debt service payments are. So there is a correlation. When we saw that first interest rate hike come in March, we started to see a trend to occur. The next one that followed in May, and the one that we're going to hear about very shortly, they have implications. So as you mentioned before, when rates changed, we saw new purchase activity start to taper down. It's been tapering down pretty consecutively every month. The flip side we've seen, or converse to that, is we've seen refinance and remortgage activity. Those that have loans go, look, I've got a loan. It might be coming out to revert now. I'm coming out of my fixed rate period, and they're trying to lock in rates. So we've seen those applications come up. So one of the big things to look at is, how are you personally affected by a mortgage rate increase? When rates were so low, if you took a mortgage at 2.5%, if we took the average mortgage we've seen being about 1.9 million at a 75% LTV, those payments a month are around about 9,000. For every percentage point increase, you're seeing roughly 1,000 dirhams extra a month on those payments. So if we go from 2.5 or 3% now to where I think we're going to be in probably a year's time, closer to 6, that's an extra 3,500 to 4,000 a month in debt service. How many people are going to be able to afford that increase should it happen?
What are we likely to see? I mean, and this is crystal ball, Zhann, at that stage. Are people, dare I say it, going to struggle to keep up a little bit? I'm choosing my words here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a touchy subject. You have to look at when you take out a loan, the bank looks at your total debt to income or your debt burden ratio. That's how much debt you carry. If we use some numbers from more mature markets on housing costs, so your mortgage costs that would go into it, those repayments, they look to see that ratio about 25 to 35%. And then add in your other debts, so credit cards and other things, to maybe you're pushing up into the 40s. I think the central bank here has a maximum of 50 that banks could lend against. So depending on what your financial position is, what other debt you have, it's really going to have an impact. If you have no debt and you're borrowing, rates go up, so you can afford a little more debt service. But if you're already pushing that higher end with your other payments, and now you've got credit card interest going up, car loan interest payments going up, all those coming up, it could put you into a position where there's just so much debt happening, and couple that with inflation and price increases. For some, it could become unmanageable. And what do then? They're almost forced to sell their homes either before they get underwater, or unfortunately, when they get to the point where they just may have negative equity.
Let's look at one of the other reasons very quickly that mortgage volumes might be declining. We've been speaking to people who are being outbid by cash buyers. Tom's about to do an interview with the guys at Henley about the number of high net worth individuals coming into Dubai. We could take the top spot as a country this year for that. Are we just seeing a lot more people with cash?
Yeah, look, there's definitely more cash coming into the market. From outside of the market, I think we're still seeing it from Europe, from Russia, from those countries where it's coming in. Yeah, you're getting people that are being outbid, but people have been getting outbid for more than a year or so. The thing before is I think people were stretching themselves maybe a little too thin because there's so limited inventory, and they're getting outbid and there's bidding wars. They're coming up higher, and they're potentially, if they were taking mortgages, a little too aggressive on the mortgages. One of my biggest pieces of advice would be for anyone that has a mortgage, contact a mortgage broker, contact a loan advisor. If you're on a variable rate or it's going to adjust, lock into a longer term product. If you're looking to purchase, really weigh up what could happen. What's your situation? What's your stress test? If rates go up 2 or 3% in the next year, how's that going to affect you?
Zhann Jochinke is the Chief Operating Officer of Property Monitor, speaking to us this morning before they release their new report. Do love it when people do that, showing that for the third month in a row, Dubai property prices have recorded less than 1% month-on-month growth.